I'll send that for this.
Thank you, everybody, coming to the seminar today. And I am pleased to introduce Dr. Irving Epstein. And I'm sure many of you already know Dr. Epstein. He is the Henry F. Fishback Professor of Chemistry and former Dean of Arts and Sciences and Provost at Brandeis. His research group has published hundreds of articles. He has won multiple awards and held advanced positions and organizations. For example, he has been a Guggenheim Fellow and was named the Howard Hughes Medical Institute Professor. He chairs the board of directors at the New England Complex Systems Institute. Some research areas here he is involved in are oscillatory chemical reactions, spatial pattern formation, dynamical systems, complex behavior and chemically reacting systems, and neurobiology. And we very much look forward to hearing more about his work today.
Thank you for the kind introduction and the invitation. Let me start by thanking my collaborators. The Zero was my next to last graduate student. And he did the original work, which was mainly numerical, and the publications attracted the attention of Tasso Copper at BU and his former postdoc, Theo Vo in Australia, and they contacted us and said, it looks like there's some really interesting mathematics underlying the numerical results, so maybe we could collaborate on putting some math in there, which we did, and I'll tell you about some of that. So I will start by trying to give you a little bit of motivation for this and making a little bit of a connection with biology. And then I'll talk about the models and numerical results, and then I'll look at the technique that we have used to try to analyze these behaviors. So this is basically about coupled oscillators, and so this really goes back to Huygens in the 17th century, and he was interested in what happens if you put two pendulum clocks on a wall. If they're close enough together, they can synchronize. And he was particularly interested in this for applications to navigation. And the problem was that it was difficult for sailors at sea to figure out their longitude. And it was helpful if you had a reliable clock on board. So in 1664, he planned this experiment with Alexander Bruce to put some pendulum clocks on a ship. And well, let me just illustrate the kinds of behavior that coupled pendulums can show. Not the behavior I wanted. All right. If we get past this, here we go. It's not. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Connected by a soft spring comprising a coupled 2-degree of freedom system. Such a 2-degree of freedom system has two natural modes of vibration.
So each one of those, you can think of
the
as
two
a
masses
pendulum
move in the same direction at the same
in a
time,
plot,
and the coupling spring is neither stretched nor compressed.
and the spring is the wall that they're hanging on. So this is in phase synchronization. Even though,
In the second natural mode of vibration, the two masses move in opposite directions.
so this is anti-phase.
And stretching the coupling spring.
Although the
The
pendulums
center of the spring is
individually may have
not moving
slightly
at all.
different periods. And then we'll see a third more.
A coupled
complex
oscillation behavior occurs when both masses are released from rest, but one mass is at its equilibrium position while the other mass is displaced from equilibrium. The resulting motion is a trading back and forth of energy and displacement between the two masses.
Okay.
Here's a close-up view of the first natural
I don't
mode
think-
oscillation.
All right, we may have to let that play out.
Here's a close-up view of the second natural mode of oscillation.
Can you kill it?
It's in your Chrome here. There. There we go. There. Clicking around.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Here slide. So minimize. Yeah, it's good. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
There, yeah. Okay, so
That's just to illustrate the most common and most intuitive kinds of behavior that a pair of coupled oscillators can undergo. But note that all three of those motions were symmetric in the sense that each oscillator was doing the same thing, and the difference was in phase between them.
but we're going to be interested in more complex kinds of behavior. So, okay,
So Huygens calls this the sympathy of two clocks. He sets this up on a ship going to the West Indies, but he doesn't account for weather. And they get into a bad storm, and it stops the clocks, and the sailors can't figure out what to do. And so he ultimately gives up on the idea of using coupled pendulums for navigation. So This is you probably don't want to set up your experiments under
these conditions. Okay, so now
a little bit of biology. Certain animals, and typically these are either aquatic species like dolphins or whales or seals, or birds, have the ability to sleep with one half of their brain asleep and the other half awake. And this is referred to as unihemispheric sleep. And the advantage it convey, well, if you're going to be flying, you want to have at least half your brain working. Or if you have predators in the neighborhood, might also be a useful thing. But typically land-based mammals do not have this ability. And the argument is that there are costs to this. And so if you're not flying or swimming and you don't have predators around, then you could probably give this up in exchange for enhancing other brain abilities. Another, and this I think is more tenuous, but another thing one might speculate on is in many organisms, and I happen to know something about this one because it's the system that's studied in Eve Marder's lab, the crustacean stomatogastric ganglion, which generates rhythmic motion in the gut. There are multiple copies of certain neurons, and one might ask why, and a perhaps plausible answer is that by having multiple copies of an oscillator coupled together, you can generate much more complex behavior than you can with a single oscillator. I'm not pushing this argument. Okay, so the models that we study, we've studied 3 models that have a couple of common features. So the first is the van der Pol, which has been used mostly in electronics, but also as a model for heartbeat. This Langmuir-Epstein model we developed to describe both temporal oscillations and spatial patterns in the chlorine dioxide iodine malonic acid reaction. And then the Cooper model was formulated to describe the behavior of electrochemical oscillations. The key features that we should focus on are that these are fast, slow systems. There's a parameter epsilon in the van der Pol, beta in the Langmuir-Epstein, and sigma in the Cooper model. That's a small parameter, much less than 1, so that the green equations represent fast variables and the red ones represent slow variables. And then there's a tunable parameter that one can vary to sort of scan through the behaviors of the system. So W in the van der Pol case is typically used, although you can vary any of the others, A in the Langmuir-Epstein, and lambda in the Cooper model. And so we're going to be interested in what happens as you change this control parameter.
In the
Yeah.
Van der Pol, W is a variable, right? So do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry, not W, I mean A. Yep. Okay. So in analyzing these kinds of systems, it's useful to look at actually, just to go back, the other thing I should mention as a common feature is that in the fast equation, there's a cubic or cubic-like nonlinearity. This one is essentially a cubic, even though it's a little more complex. And so what one does in analyzing these systems is to look at the null cline, the curve on which the rate of change of the fast variable is 0. And so this is represented by the purple curve here. And for appropriate values of the control parameter, one observes trajectories that are called canards. I mean, typical trajectories in these systems either end up at a stable equilibrium. This is the slow null cline, so where they cross, it's an equilibrium. If the parameter is such that that point is stable, then the trajectories just go into the equilibrium point. But for parameters where the fixed point is unstable, there are time-dependent, typically oscillatory trajectories. In 2 dimensions, you don't have, with 2 variables, you don't have much choice. It's either going to be fixed point or periodic. And the trajectories that follow the nullcline, like this one, follow it for down this branch, which is essentially a stable branch. And then they make the turn, and if they come up here and go off to the right, then you get a large excursion before the system is pulled back to the other branch of the nullcline, or they can go off to the left, in which case they're going to make a small excursion. And as one tunes the parameter, these canards get bigger, and eventually you get to a point where the trajectory just sort of goes off somewhere out here and then comes back, and that's a relaxation oscillation where you get a large spike, and typically the phase point is moving slowly along the nullcline, and then goes rapidly back toward the nullcline, and that's your oscillation. These canards, some people think they look like a duck. These, if they go off to the right, are called canards with heads, and if they go off to the left, they're headless ducks. But these canards are going to play a key role in determining the behavior of these systems. And and there is a maximal canard, which is the black curve, where the system hangs on to the unstable branch of the nullcline, the dashed purple line, as far as it can before it heads back to the stable branch. Yeah.
Does Amphithenagoon do the maximal canal thing? Because I don't recall seeing it going along the unstable branch.
I think if you tune the parameter,
Just right.
yeah, because this stuff occurs in a pretty narrow, I mean, an exponentially narrow range.
The range, the whole range of the explosion is exponential -1/epsilon.
Yeah.
So it's in parameter space. It's extremely small.
Yes,
So to get this
we will
figure,
see
I think
that.
somebody changed 10 decimals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you'll see when I show some of the behavior, if you look carefully at the parameter values, they're changing in the 5th decimal place. Yeah.
The slope equation right now is just helping you to get a fixed point, stable one. It's not doing anything in the canard business, is it?
No, well, I mean, it's providing, yeah, this nullcline, but yeah, we're focusing really on the fast dynamics here. Yep. Okay, now let me say something about chimeras. So in Greek mythology, there is this animal that not only breathes fire, but has a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. And Kuramoto and Batagug in 2002 found that in a system of coupled, very simple oscillators, under certain conditions, they would split into 2 groups. And one set of these oscillators would oscillate in a synchronized, coherent way, while the other set oscillated in a desynchronized, incoherent way. And then Danny Abrams and Steve Strogatz who studied this in more detail, coined the term chimera. And so now this is a set of identical oscillators symmetrically coupled all to all, so that this is a form of symmetry breaking. And so this is a paper from 2019 where Scholl and collaborators analyzed a set of, I think it was 90 Fitzhugh-Nagumo oscillators with where the connectivity was taken from a map of the human brain. Basically, there was a two hemisphere structure for this connectivity. There was in each half, the connections were fairly dense, while the cross connections were relatively sparse. And what they found in this brain was unihemispheric sleep, in the sense that they got a chimera where one half was quite active and the other half was not. And they say this is common among migratory birds and mammals, like aquatic species. I don't know whether they're trying to argue that because they use the human brain map, humans are capable of unihemispheric sleep as well, but maybe that's the implication. Okay, so question, how small a network do we need to get chimera-like behavior? Well, probably can't do it with one oscillator, but you could try two. And so Nazir, for his thesis, looked at a pair of coupled Langmuir-Epstein oscillators. So the two oscillators are identical. They're diffusively coupled, proportional to the difference in concentrations or species populations. And what he found was that under appropriate choices of parameters, you got a behavior in which one oscillator and appropriate choice of conditions also means you have to choose the initial conditions. The mode in which the two oscillators oscillate in phase or antiphase together symmetrically is stable. But there's or in some cases multi-stability, where if you choose initial conditions that are sufficiently asymmetric, then you can get behavior like this, where one oscillator, the red one, is oscillating essentially period one with large amplitude. If you look really closely, you'll see that the peak heights are not exactly the same, or you can see that this trajectory is sort of fuzzy. And the other oscillator is undergoing chaotic small amplitude motion. And the amplitudes differ by roughly an order of magnitude. So we refer to this as strong symmetry breaking. You can also, in coupled oscillators, get behavior that is symmetry broken, in the sense that the two oscillators are doing different things, but their amplitudes are the same order of magnitude, and we refer to that as weak symmetry breaking.
Is this a permanent symmetry breaking, or is it like the pendulums you showed where eventually?
No, this is permanent. Yeah, there are other behaviors where the two oscillators switch back and forth. But in this case, yeah, oscillator, the red one is always big and the blue one is always small. Here, if you want to see equations, are the equations, what I would point out is here are the coupling terms in blue. And when we looked at this behavior, we said, well, what's going on? This is somewhat counterintuitive that two identical systems could separate in this way. And we said, well, maybe we should think about it as a master-slave kind of system where the big oscillator is somehow driving the little one. So we constructed another model where we basically decoupled in one direction. So the little one still affects the big one, but the big one, the big one drives the little one, but the little one doesn't affect the big one. And we simulated the systems with the same sets of parameters, and what we found was this. So with reciprocal coupling, where each one drives the other, these are next amplitude maps. So plotting the peak, the nth peak against the n plus first peak. So we find this chaotic behavior. Notice that the scales on these are different. So this is the small amplitude oscillation under the chaotic behavior. And this is the large amplitude oscillation. And you can see that remember the peaks were not exactly the same size. So that this dot is actually a collection of dots. This is the spread of peak heights. This is the master-slave behavior, which you can see looks pretty much the same. And I mean, this has to be spread out somewhat, because if the little one is doing chaotic motion and is coupled to the big one, it's going to have some small effect on the big one's behavior. Yeah.
Are these phenomena mostly for small coupling? Or
What do you mean by small?
compared to where the amplitude, let's say, of the large one multiplied by the coupling is small compared to the amplitude of the big side one?
Yeah, probably, but not super small. Okay, so here I actually have a movie of this, which I hope will play. There we go. Okay, so to help you visualize this, time series on the left, phase plane on the right, and you can see that the red guy is going around a large cycle. The null line is maybe somewhere around there. And the little one just comes down here and then turns back, and it turns back at a different place each time, which gives you the chaotic behavior. And I mean, again, you can see that the amplitudes differ by about an order of magnitude.
The frequency seems to be twice larger from the small.
Twice. Well, I mean, it's sort of hard to characterize the frequency of the small one. It's certainly faster. But I would say it's sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3. Yep. So we actually see a lot of different patterns near the point, near the parameter value where you get this explosion of canard behavior. And I just illustrate 3 here. The one called leapfrogging involves, it's a little bit like the complex oscillation in the movie, where each oscillator periodically overtakes the other one. I'll show you a movie of that in a minute. The intermittent spiking, basically, the system is more or less quiescent, and then one of the oscillators will show a big spike, and the numbers of spikes in a burst like this appear to be essentially random. And then the other one will spike, and this goes on indefinitely. These 2 parameters, and note where the parameter is changing. These 2 occur at values of the bifurcation parameter just below the canard explosion. This one, so mixed mode oscillation occurs just after the explosion. Notice the notation here is this is periodic behavior. And in each period, one oscillator shows 1 large and 6 small oscillations, and the other one shows 1 large and 3 small. And the 1, 3, the small amplitude oscillations are relatively simple, whereas in the 1, 6, they're more complex. And there are lots of combinations like this. I'll show you an overview in a little bit.
Since these oscillators are identical, physically, one will always be a master and then the other the slave, I assume. But what about mathematically?
That's a Zoom question.
Oh, it's actually somebody on Zoom. I thought it was YouTube.
Oh,
But it's not really.
oh, was that I am not monitoring the chat. Was there a question there?
I'll put in chat if they could say it again.
Yeah, the question is, if this was 2 physical oscillators linked, I assume one would always be the master and the other is the slave, because of some minor characteristics. But in mathematically, they're identical. What determines the master and slave relationship?
The choice of initial conditions. The initial, to get this behavior, your initial conditions have to be asymmetric. And so, I mean, basically, you're starting off one oscillator with large amplitude and the other one with small, and that behavior persists.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I wanted to show you the leapfrogging behavior. So notice that for a while, the blue guy is ahead of the red one, and then the red one overtakes him.
and then the red one leads for a while, and then the blue one leads for a while. This is not symmetry breaking. I mean, if we look closely, maybe would be. But I think essentially the two oscillators are doing the same thing. If there's any symmetry breaking, it's very weak here. Okay, so
That's one behavior. Then I showed you the spiking, and
then this was more complex mixed mode kinds of oscillations.
and yeah, okay. So now,
add a little more complexity. If we look at a system, this is now a 3 oscillator system. And what happens here is that the two on the outside are undergoing large amplitude oscillations in phase. But they're essentially driving the one in the middle, and it's doing small amplitude oscillations. And for this value, this is now the Vanderpool. For this value of the bifurcation parameter, we get a period 6, a 5-1 oscillation. If we tweak the parameter just a little bit, 1 in the 4th decimal place, we get period doubling, where we're getting 2 5-1 sequences in each cycle, but with slightly different amplitudes. And we tweak it again, and we get period 24. We've actually gone up to been able to see period 96. And we calculate by very carefully varying the parameter. We were able to calculate the Feigenbaum number that characterizes a period doubling sequence, and it was pretty good. I mean, 4.661, which I think is within a few percent of what it should be. And we also, if we move the parameter in bigger steps, we get a period adding sequence where we go from 5-1 to 6-1 to 7-1. I think we got up to 9-1. So there's this incredible richness of behavior. But again, we're talking for the period adding, maybe we're changing the 3rd decimal place rather than the 4th.
I'm going to have a solution to this problem of small lack of robustness. Okay, so here's a closer look at a mixed mode coupled with a small amplitude oscillation. So the mixed mode is this 1-3, the blue oscillator. The red oscillator is undergoing small amplitude oscillations, which don't show up on the scale here. So let's blow it up a bit. So now we're looking at this interval. And what we see is that we get 6 small amplitude oscillations per period. And these are these. And we can blow it up still further. And see that there's
real structure in those small amplitude oscillations.
Okay.
All right, so this was all essentially just numerical. So then Tasso called me up one day and said, how would you like to work together and look at this stuff a little more closely, a little more analytically? And I said, yeah, fine. And so he introduced me to the notion of a folded singularity. So this is a singularity that occurs at a fold. These cubic nullclines have two folds. And the behavior can change quite sharply at these folds. And this leads to changes in stability, leads to things like
Relaxation oscillations.
so here are some properties. They create a switching surface. You get dramatic changes in behavior. There's extreme sensitivity because I mean, the fold is essentially a point. A tiny change in a parameter can lead to very large changes in behavior. And they're important for analyzing how a system behaves.
They occur in a number of varieties. They can be folded nodes or saddle points or centers. We can actually, given the simplicity of our model, we can locate them very often analytically, which is nice.
And so Tasso and Theo came up with this idea of Cartesian product quilts. So the behavior that we're going to be most interested in is likely to occur near those cubic-like nullclines. And in a two oscillator system, there are two of them where dV1 equals 0 and dV2 equals 0, where those are the fast variables. And if we consider the set of points where both of those are 0, that gives you a two-dimensional surface in your four-dimensional space. And we call that a Cartesian product quilt. So it's the set of points where both oscillators are on the fast nullcline. And since each nullcline has 3 branches, because it's cubic, 2 attracting, 1 repelling, this quilt has 9 patches.
So this again is the picture I showed you earlier, where you have the stable, yeah, where am I? Oh, yeah, okay, so you have the stable branch, and unstable branch of the nullcline. And when you take this Cartesian product, what you get, and this is a 3-dimensional projection in the 4-dimensional space, you get something that looks like this, or if you project it further into 2 dimensions, what you get are patches where the purple ones are where both oscillators are on the on the attracting branches. This is where both oscillators are on the repelling branch of the nullcline, and these are saddle areas where one is on the repelling branch and one is on the attracting branch. So we have this, and these black lines which divide the regions are places where
an eigenvalue changes sign where the determinant of the fast subset of equations is 0. Yeah, Paul.
So just something a little counterintuitive about that, because if you look along the bottom,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of understandable that because you've got two different stable branches, right?
Yep.
And you have to cross a phase boundary essentially through the unstable one to get
Yep.
from one stable to the other. Whereas if you look at the yellow region,
Mhm.
you're on like one stable null cline and somehow switch to the other without actually crossing any boundary. So you can just go through the yellow region on one side to the yellow region on the other side. And so somehow you like switch branch from one variable, but not had to change. How that happened.
I think it may have to do with the fact that there are 4 variables. But I'd have to
So you somehow
think about this. This is for the linear Epstein. It actually, in the van der Pol, these actually touch.
okay.
And it gives you the intuitive picture. It may have something to do with the fact that it's not a true cubic and it's a rational fraction, but I'm not sure.
And these services are like linear in the other two dimensions you cut out, but they're not.
Well, nearly, yeah.
Okay, and where do these folded singularities lie? They're spread out all over. But what's maybe most important, and this is a blow up of this, is that some of them are asymmetric. So this is the equilibrium for the full system, so which is here. But the key is that there are these folded nodes and folded saddles that lie on one side or the other. And these are the points that are most useful in analyzing the behavior. Tasso calls them the traffic cops. They direct, if a trajectory comes in the neighborhood of one of these, they direct it in one direction or another. They have a stable manifold and an unstable manifold. And the ratio of eigenvalues of the stable to the unstable determines the number of times that the trajectory can funnel around that point. And that's essentially where the mixed mode oscillations arise.
Sorry to interrupt again, but
Yep.
those lines there, the slow variables and all lines maps onto the same space, is that right? Or is this
Say that again.
was the lines, the blue and red lines?
The blue and this.
That go through the fixed points,
Yeah.
are they the slow variable null clines? Projects.
Yeah, I think they.
Where the
No, or
axes are the fast
very
variables.
stable and stable manifolds.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, those are the stable and unstable manifolds.
Okay, so just
Show you
So we just,
a couple of.
and your graph FF was folded focus.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so here is a relatively simple symmetry broken rhythm where one oscillator does 2 small oscillations per cycle and one just does one large amplitude oscillation. And you can see that when we're in the attractive patch, this single arrow means that the trajectory moves slowly. The double arrow, which you see in the saddle regions, means that it moves more rapidly. And that gives rise to the structure up there. So this corresponds
to this turnaround here. It's this folded node and folded singularity which essentially guide the trajectory. I'll just show you one more as we're starting to run out of time. Here's a more complex behavior where all the action is really happening around this folded node, and it leads to the three small amplitude oscillations attached to the large one, and you get the six small amplitude oscillations in the blue oscillator. Sorry, I have to race through these. Just an overview. This is a dynamic phase diagram that shows some of the really complex mixed mode behavior that we've seen, but notice the scale on which the bifurcation parameter is changing, right? Okay, so yeah, can this have any meaning in the real world? Oh, one more quick. This is weak symmetry breaking. This is a canardioid. It's a cardioid that arises from a canard explosion. The two branches, the two lobes are just slightly different because again, it's controlled by one of these off-axis folded singularities. But okay, so the question that somebody was going to embarrass me by asking, if the parameter ranges are so small, can this be relevant to anything? And well, biological systems don't just have two variables. I mean, it's 2 to some big power, right? And behaviors like canard explosions, which occur in an exponentially small parameter range in two variable systems, become generic in systems with more variables. So, the natural thing is to look at at a bigger model. Next biggest is 3 variables. Cooper model has 1 fast, 2 slow. We get all sorts of behaviors, and you can also have a double folded node. But I just illustrate some of the kinds of rhythms where we get one oscillator just doing small oscillations, but the other one doing 1, 2, 3, or 4 different mixed mode oscillations in each cycle. And the range of parameters is considerably extended. So final slide, where would one go from here? Well, certainly there's a lot more stuff out there to be found, looking at more than 2 or 3 oscillators. What happens if the oscillators are a little bit different from one another? Because in real biological systems, no 2 oscillators are exactly the same. What about making the coupling more realistic? If you're talking about neurons, the coupling should be synaptic and have its own interesting dynamics rather than diffusive, which is fine for chemistry. And finally, will some of this behavior carry over
to spatially distributed systems. So in just reactions, you think, if you're a chemist, you think in a petri dish. But what are the analogs of these kinds of behaviors in pattern forming systems? So I will stop there. Thank you.
Maybe I can make a comment from neuroscience, because I think this is great, fun math, and I should begin by saying I don't know really little about any studies of animals with unihemispheric sleep, but with mammals, rodents, humans, we know there are multiple sleep stages, so sleep isn't just one thing. There's REM, and none of them are oscillators. You'll get these sudden events within a sleep stage, but also it's just considered that sleep is driven by changes in neuromodulation. So there's clear acetylcholine changes, which changes the essential couplings between these variables. So in non-REM versus REM sleep versus awake, it's like the parameters that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So it's not like you'd expect one oscillator with fixed parameters to flip between states to represent sleep. I don't know. I mean, of course, the modulation has to come from somewhere itself. And what causes that? She can get a tick in the neck. But I wonder what your thoughts are.
Well, I mean, I think any claim of relevance to real biological systems is quite speculative. But I mean, I guess I'm not that worried about the notion of external inputs changing parameters, because all of this stuff involves changing parameters. And if you think of it as being a multi, as opposed to two variable system, things are somewhat robust to parameter changes. So, whether one can think of changes in behavior as equivalent to bifurcations in these systems, I don't think that's a terrible leap. But yeah, I mean, unless I was trying to sell this to NIH, I wouldn't push it that hard.
I guess second, do you happen to know these unihemispheric sleeping animals are also fully awake at times where both brains, or is always one half the brain?
Oh, no. I think they have waking states where everything is working. Yeah, I mean, if you asked a dolphin to solve a problem, you'd probably better do it in the day than at night.
So then what do you say about the evolutional drive? The thing they're lacking is a time when both halves are asleep at the same time.
Because then a shark might eat.
Right, so then that raises the question of what is the value of that mammals decide to need them?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you wonder whether when we were living in caves near saber-toothed tigers, whether it might have been a good thing.
Because you can understand why you might want both halves awake at the same time to fully think.
Yep.
Why you ever need a time both halves are asleep.
Yeah. To lay down memories.
Right.
Maybe we have better memories than some other organisms. Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you could reconnect simply that how initially you began with like a hemispheric sleep, like half of it sleep. How does this connect with this symmetry breaking oscillator thing? Like what is the connection there? And Paul kind of already said that there are a lot of stages of sleep and all that, but even just half of the brain sleeping, how does it connect with symmetry breaking or things like that?
Well, by making extreme simplifications to think of one hemisphere as each hemisphere as a single oscillator.
A single oscillator.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty extreme. Yeah.
On the 0613, I got lost with how the trajectories and the quilt and the stable and unstable manifolds were related. I could see that in the in the previous example.
All right, well,
So if you
I
could
think
see
the
how
answer is, if you
small-
could see it in the previous example, you just have to stare at this one for about 6 times as long.
Because this one is not tracking stable and unstable manifolds for each of the loops. That's kind of what throws me out, you see. The other one was folding right when a stable manifold hits an unstable manifold. So right at the now.
There is this funnel around the folded saddle. And it's essentially its width is determined by the ratio of lambda stable to lambda unstable. And so that gives you the number of secondary canards.
Oh, so they are secondary canards.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So those are essentially secondary canards.
Fine.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Um, how robust are these oscillations? How sensitive are they to perturbations? And supposing you want to stop the oscillation, do you hit the master or the slave?
Oh, robust in that sense. My sense is, since the master's in charge, you would hit the master. I think any perturbation that gets it too close to the symmetric large amplitude state is likely to destroy the complex behavior, because that state has a very large basin of attraction. One of the other advantages to the Cartesian product quilt approach is, if you can develop some intuition with it, you can predict rather than just throwing darts, good initial conditions to get a particular desired behavior. So I think the answer is, at least in the 2-variable system, the basin of attraction of this interesting behavior is considerably smaller than the basin of attraction of the symmetric behavior. So if you might even be able to if you knocked the little one into an area where there's large oscillation, you would also kill it.
And then does it just everything decay to an equilibrium and that's it?
No, in these sets of parameters, it will decay to synchronized, usually in phase, for some parameters, anti-phase oscillation. You have to have a different set of parameters if you want the system to end up at equilibrium.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I want to. Okay. So one of the difficulties in these is that we can understand the local behavior as you see it. In the return, the large part that
I
returns.
mean, how far does it go?
Will it bring you exactly back within here? It's kind of something, generally you cannot really.
Well, isn't it the same question as with the relaxation oscillation?
It's a little more complicated.
Well,
because
yeah.
you have to end up between the right.
Yeah.
Stable, and it's a global property.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that has to integrate the whole expansion contraction around the whole trajectory.
yeah.
So usually that's something we cannot really address. I was wondering if you had,
I think it gets pretty qualitative as you move off.
So I guess this is the simplest system that has a chimera behavior. But if you add oscillators, for example, it becomes very complicated very fast. So how does this approach give you useful information as to study more complex systems that still have a chimera behavior?
You mean, okay. So does it tell you anything about the kinds of systems that that Scholl studied with 90,
For example, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
they are not
I mean,
able to
and
prove-
clearly, I mean, the number of patches on your quilt goes up exponentially. So the quilt approach is not going to be useful. I think it's more giving a sense of what is possible and how to think about, suppose you had some, variable reduction approach to one of these large systems. Maybe this could tell you something about at least what to look for. I don't think, yeah, I don't see it as being extendable to the kinds of chimera systems that people started out studying, where they had, yeah, lots of oscillators in each group.
Is the slow versus fast, is that a very hard rule or kind of you can play with that?
That's, I mean, well, I mean, it's hard in the sense that, yes, there has to be a
Yes,
separation
relatively.
of time scales, but I mean, maybe 0.1, you can still see stuff. I think if epsilon were half, you probably wouldn't get anything of this sort, maybe get something else. All right, well, thank you.